Hello my lovelies, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Becky and I'm a fashion and lifestyle blogger, and I haven't filmed a YouTube video in so long that I feel like I don't know how to do it anymore. I'm very nervous today and I don't know why. I've been doing this for years, but today, as you will have seen from the title, I am going to talk you guys through my breast reduction journey, and I'm gonna answer a Q&A as well. I am officially 1 year post-op. I was a year post-op yesterday, so I feel like I can kind of answer a lot of questions now, and I feel a lot more able to really like holistically answer things, and it just feels like it's time. I have filmed this video actually quite a few times over the last year, and either thought that, you know, I just wasn't far enough along to answer some questions, or totally freaked out because men on the internet can be awful. And definitely when I shared on Instagram that this was a journey I was going to go on, they had a lot of things to say and they weren't nice things, and you know, putting this on YouTube is kind of scary for that reason too. But it feels like this is such a big thing that I did and that I'm really proud of, and I'm really proud that I did, and I know it's something that so many people want to do and are scared to do, and I don't want to let men's opinions or what they've got to say kind of hinder my ability to share my experiences. There were a lot of things that happened for me that I didn't expect, a lot of things that I kind of learned along the way that I hadn't seen anybody else talk about, and I think that I just really feel like I have things to share. That's what we're doing. You're gonna have to forgive me playing with my hair because it's really annoying me that it just doesn't look right today. So yeah, that's that. Let's kind of, I'll tell you a bit of the story first, and then I'll answer some questions, and probably it's just gonna end up a bit of like a chat. It's currently June 2023. I had surgery in June 2022. And I would say I had wanted to have this surgery for, I'm trying to think, probably it's like my second year of uni that I learned that it was a thing. So probably since about 2017. For me, I have always been on the larger side chest-wise. Then when I went to uni, I put on a lot of weight. I thought that my chest kind of got bigger because of that. I lost weight, the boobs didn't go. And that's when it became clear to me that this was just a genetic thing. When you look at the other women in my family, it tracks. So it was probably June 2021-ish that I was like, okay, I'm actually gonna do this at some point. And then in December 2021, I was kind of setting out my goals for 2022. I was like, what do I want to achieve in this year? What do I want to do? And that was when I was like, okay, this is the year. I'm gonna do it. In June 2021, I started losing a little bit of weight, but I will talk about some weight things a bit later in the video. So my goal that I kind of set myself was that I wanted to do it by the end of 2022. I'd had enough, and like I said, I'd already started losing weight, so they kind of matched my body even less. Like the size difference became more and more obvious the more weight I lost. So that was my plan. I started doing research that December. I called my doctor and I spoke to the doctor and I asked about the NHS route. So actually this is a question that came up a lot on Instagram, was like, why didn't I go NHS? So there's a couple requirements for the NHS. You have to be under a certain BMI requirement, which you have to be under a certain BMI requirement for the surgery in general. So that was why I was losing weight. It was because I wanted to get under that BMI requirement. When I started losing weight, it was kind of a, when I eventually get to the point of wanting surgery, I need to be under this weight. But then obviously it turned into more of a, I'm having surgery soon, I need to get there. So typically your BMI has to be below 30. Some doctors I think require 28. I think it's at their own discretion. And they can do you if you're a little bit higher than 30, again at their own discretion, but I think for the NHS 30 or 28, I can't remember for sure, I'll check and I'll put it on the screen, is a hard limit for the NHS requirements. For the NHS, you do have to have a history of kind of showing that you have had issues physically because of your chest. So for instance, I'll put some pictures on the screen, but kind of this bit of my shoulder and underneath like my boob, I would get like red open sores and rashes from bras. To be honest, I predominantly wore sports bras in the attempt to like squish them, but from those two, because they were obviously very heavy duty and they're very tight and whatever, I did consistently get a lot of like sores and rashes and things like that. So that was something that I'd shown to the doctor. Things like backache, so much unwanted attention, kind of mentally that not being able to feel like your body like matches each other. But for me, it was really that physical aspect of like carrying them all day. I would have big indentations. I don't have them so much anymore, they're nearly gone, but here you can see that I have this like little indentation from bra straps. That used to be a lot more intense. Just, yeah, it was just incredibly painful, uncomfortable, and it was time to go. So I spoke with my doctor, and I did actually qualify for the NHS breast reduction, and I was on the waiting list, but the doctor told me don't expect it anytime really. I think she said within 2 or 3 years. And there is also something, actually, like I wasn't fully on the wait list yet, sorry. There was something about she was happy to put me on the wait list, but there was one other box I had to tick for. I had to like go and have physio or something like that first, or have some kind of back scan or something, I can't remember exactly. But basically I decided to go private before I made it to that stage. So I did meet the requirements, but I just decided that I didn't want to wait that much longer. You know, I would do things like not go out because I couldn't find something that I wanted to wear that would hide them well enough, or I would struggle to do certain exercises because they would get in the way, or, you know, like I said, like the pain. And it just got to the point where I felt like it was holding my life back way too much, that I couldn't wait years more. So I decided to go private. I had some savings, a little bit of savings that I had been saving to buy a house. So I decided to take that, put that towards surgery instead. Then I saved for a few months, well, not a few months, quite a few months. And I basically did nothing, like I didn't spend any money, I just saved. And I worked like hell, like any tiny bit of extra work I could get, freelance, anything. Yeah, basically saved. So that December I started researching surgeons a lot. Probably how I chose my surgeon is could be an entire video on itself, so I can maybe make that one as well. But basically I ended up going with Dr. Lyndsey Highton. She's based here in Manchester and she works in a couple different hospitals, and I decided, like, I chose her rather than the hospital first. So I had it in the Spire Hospital, but it was Dr. Highton, then the surgery, rather than the other way around. Dr. Highton, then the hospital, rather than the other way around, if that makes sense. So when I contacted her in December, I was able to get a consultation in March, at which point I was told the wait list was around, I think, 9 to 12 months at the time, but then she had one date that was cancellation. And what was very funny was that the date that for some reason, I really had it in my head that I wanted to have surgery in the middle of June, because there were a few things I wanted to do later in the summer and I wanted to be healed before then. And also I'd counted out how many months I had to save money for to be able to meet the to be able to pay on time, and I figured out I wanted it to be roughly the middle of June. The date that she had that was a cancellation was the 15th of June, and I was like, it's a sign, let's go for it. Again, I could probably make a whole video on what happened in the consultation, but essentially I went in, she asked me why I wanted to have surgery, she asked what my expectations were, she did a physical exam, and then she basically said, you know, I'm happy to go ahead if you're happy to go ahead. She showed me some of her previous work, she answered my questions, and then we looked at dates. Well, she said that basically her receptionist would be in touch with a list of dates and I could organize with her. but I got an idea at that point of what dates might be available. It was around a week after my consultation that I actually booked the surgery. And then I think it was 1 month or maybe 2 weeks, I can't remember. Prior to surgery, I had to go in for a second consultation just to go over things again, make sure things were fresh before surgery, make sure everything was right. When I did go in and when I met Lyndsey for the first time, I told her that I wanted to be I think I told her I wanted to be a B cup, and she was like, no. Respectfully, no. At the time, I was measuring as a 32, I think double H or H, I can't remember, to be honest. I think it was double H. And I had lost weight to the point where my BMI was about 29-ish. So I was within that kind of category as well. In terms of size, in the end, basically Lyndsey explained to me that if I went as small as I was asking her to go, she didn't feel long term that I was going to be happy. I had a lot of pictures that I'd found on her Instagram of her previous work, and I was like, I want to look like this. And she's telling me, you know, that is not what you're telling me you want. So like when I'm saying I want to be a B cup, but I'm showing her a picture of what is clearly not a B cup, she's like, clearly there's a disconnect here. So at the time she told me you're going to be roughly a double D-E-ish post-surgery, and I was gutted. Like I was like, oh my god, I'm going to be really big still. It's going to be like, I'm not going to like it. And then, but I was like, okay, well, if that's what she thinks is right. Basically, in the process of choosing a surgeon, I had come to the conclusion that I really wanted it to be her. Everything I heard somebody say or saw of her work was what I wanted. So at this point, when she's telling me that she's not going to do the size that I want, I'm disappointed, but I'm willing to kind of accept that, okay, well, if I want her to do it, I'm going to have to go with what she's saying, so that's what it's going to be. And then over the next couple months, I spent some time looking at pictures of other people who were like a double D or an E, and kind of coming to the conclusion that I have to trust her. And then actually the morning of surgery, she said to me, okay, so what size are we aiming for? Like what, you know, like basically like every question she'd asked me in terms of what I expected and what I wanted, she asked again to make sure that we were definitely on the same page the morning of surgery when she came to mark me up. And in that moment, I just kind of realized she's gonna be the one that's operating. She's the one that knows what she's doing. There's no one pair of boobs I've looked at that she's done that I've thought that looks wrong. So in that moment, I just said to her, listen, do what you think looks right. Like, do what you think is gonna be the right size, do what you think is gonna be the best proportions, and I'm gonna trust you. Which was like one of the scariest moments of the whole process, to be honest, was just realizing that I was fully just handing over that control to somebody else. Go for it. But I'm here 1 year later to tell you that the size is absolutely perfect. It's exactly what I wanted there, the shape wise, size wise, everything. I didn't realize it's what I wanted, but it is, if that makes sense. Like what I was explaining wasn't what I was picturing, but they're exactly how I pictured. So yeah, that's kind of the sizing. I can't remember what we were up to in the story. Oh yeah, so that was the consultation and the pre-op. The morning of surgery, I think I checked in around 7 o'clock in the morning, and then I saw a nurse around 8 o'clock who came to do some like pre-op checks. At that time, I think I was actually the last day of this. You weren't allowed to take anybody into the hospital with you. So the next day when I signed like out, people who came in that day were allowed to bring people in for surgery with them, but the day that I was there, you weren't allowed. So I was by myself. Yeah, I think it was like, so maybe I checked in around 7, the nurse came around 8. I think I saw Lyndsey around 10 or so. She mopped me up, and then probably it was about a couple more hours, I think, before I went down. I think I went down around 1, maybe? Let me check. Probably I can see when I stopped taking pictures. So, oh yeah, so at 2:45, I was in bed still, and I had a migraine because I hadn't eaten anything since the night before, and I don't think I was allowed to drink any water either. Oh no, I was allowed to drink water, but that was it. So I think I went down around 3 then. And the next picture I have is 8 o'clock that evening. So It went down around 3. I think I was in surgery for around 3 hours. Something that I really didn't expect and that really kind of threw me off was, for some reason, I always had this image in my head that when you have surgery, you are like knocked out in your room and then they take you on the bed to surgery. But you don't, you actually walk, or at least where I had it, I don't know if this is normal, I think, but from what I heard when I've spoken to other people, I think this is normal, is that you walk down to theatre. Some people I've spoken to have actually been knocked out in the theatre, for me it was like a little room that adjoined theatre, and I could see like the door to the theatre, but I was in the bed like on the inside of it. They knocked me out in there and they took me through while I was obviously already asleep. They did some more pre-op checks. I spoke with the anesthesiologist. We went over things again. They asked me, are you sure? Are you ready? And at this point, I was so desperate to say no and run away. Like, I was so scared. And I told them that and they laughed and they were like, yeah, we hear that a lot. But in all seriousness, are you ready to go? And I was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. They put the thingy in my hand, and I think I had something in my arm as well, or maybe she was just doing like the blood pressure cuff. I seem to remember her being on this arm, but also the catheter was in this hand. Is it catheter? Is that what it's called, or is that catheter what it's called, or is that the one you pee out of? I can't remember. Anyway, I had the thingy in my hand, but I seem to remember her doing something over here, so I think she might have been doing blood pressure though. And then she said, okay, we're gonna put this like oxygen mask on you. And you basically don't panic, breathe like normal, you're gonna fall asleep. I'm laid there like looking around and waiting to fall asleep, and it didn't happen as quickly as I thought. Like, it wasn't that long. I think I was counting in my head because I'd once before been put to sleep at the dentist and they made me count down from 10. They made it to like 7. So I don't think I made it like to 0 from 10. So it really wasn't that long, but it was longer than I thought. I think I probably made it to like 3 or something. And the next thing I remember is being in the recovery room, and I was very disoriented. I was sore and sleepy. I just didn't understand what was going on, so the nurses are talking to me and they're trying to make sure that I've woken up properly. But I really just didn't realize what was happening yet, so I was just like looking around, like listening to them and saying like, do you hurt? And I'm like, yes. Like, it hadn't clicked for me yet. And then Lyndsey came and she was like, how are you doing? And then once I saw her face, I think was when it all clicked, and I looked down and I was like, oh my god, they're gone. That was when I realized that it happened. And then I think as that clicked was when I was starting to feel like, oh my god, and it hurts. So the pain wasn't really like overwhelming. It was like a dull kind of ache. I think they put you on some kind of painkillers before you wake up. I think they also put like a bunch of local anesthetic inside you, so that kind of like, as they're sewing you up and stuff, they're putting it in there, so that kind of keeps you numb from the inside for a while longer too. But basically, yeah, that's when I started to feel like I could feel that it hurt a bit. They gave me some morphine, the pain kind of went away. And then I think you had to drink like water or something there, or something, I can't remember. And then basically at that point that you'd done whatever this was, I can't remember what it was, you either had to be awake for a certain amount of time or drink or something like that. Once you'd done that, you were allowed to go back to your room. I don't remember them taking me to my room, so I must have fallen asleep again. And then I think it was every 13 minutes a nurse would come, check your blood pressure, check like all your vitals basically. So I just remember sleeping, being woken up, sleeping, being woken up. I remember it hurt more later, and I think I had more morphine, and then I was feeling pretty okay actually. Like, it wasn't as bad as I expected. One thing that was weird is that you're not really allowed to like go to the toilet by yourself, so I had to call for the nurse, and the nurse would like walk you to the bathroom and then wait outside and then walk you back to bed. So I had like an ensuite room. Probably have some pictures that I can put in. So I was in the bathroom alone, but she was right outside in case I needed her. So that was interesting. And also like you're very, very tight in your upper body. So like basically to compensate, I was a lot like this at first, like kind of trying to like take any pressure off of my chest, but my entire upper body was really rigid, so it was difficult to move, just because like I didn't have that like flexibility. I also had picot dressings, which meant that the dressings, so I had anchor incisions, so they go around the areola, down, and like this under each boob, and then they kind of go around the side here. And the picot dressings were like bandages that went across that. They looked like a cross between a plaster and a sticker, actually. They went across that, and I think they went up, but not around the areola, I think. And basically then I had like these little boxes. Again, I'll put the pictures in, and they were like tubed and attached to these little like plasters, and it basically created like a vacuum on the wound, and it kind of sucked it almost. And the theory is that this promotes better wound healing, and they did work. To be fair, like I didn't really have any issues while they were on. It was really good. But they kind of like hooked onto the straps of your bra, so again that was kind of putting a bit of weight up here. Sorry, I'm so all over the place, like backwards and forwards trying to explain this, but there's, like I said, there's so many things to say. I remember that, so that day, again the day of surgery, they brought dinner around about 8 o'clock. I took one bite of like this, I think it was a bagel. No, it wasn't dinner, it was like the lunch or the snack or something, but because I'd missed that being in surgery, they brought it. And I took one bite of this bagel and I threw up, and they were like, okay, maybe it's just too soon, let's leave it. Later on they brought dinner around, I looked at it and I threw up, so they were like, okay, no more food for you. And I think at this point they stopped giving me morphine because they thought that maybe it was the morphine that was making me throw up, I think, but to be honest that's a little bit fuzzy, so I might be wrong there. That first night was pretty rough. I threw up a couple more times, I think. And then in the morning I was exhausted, like so tired, but like awake, like I couldn't go back to sleep, but I felt better. Like I was able to very, very slowly get myself out of bed and sit in the chair next to the bed, go and put like things in my suitcase. A nurse came to help me with my suitcase when it was time to leave. But yeah, the morning was pretty calm then. I think that, I can't remember, I think I saw Lyndsey in the morning. I think it was Lyndsey that had to sign me out. Yeah, I think so. I think she came around, she asked, how are you doing, blah, blah, blah. And she had to like kind of sign me off, or maybe it was the head nurse, I can't remember for sure, to be honest. Somebody had to basically sign off that I was allowed to go home, so there was a lot of waiting around for that. And at this point, I was looking at myself and I was like, I am flat. There is nothing there. And I was slightly stressed. So my thing going into this was, I told Lyndsey, as long as they're smaller, I'm going to be happy. I don't care if they're ugly, like I don't care if they're scarred, I don't care if they're lopsided. I just desperately needed them to be smaller. Like there was no too small. Like as long as I had boobs there, I wasn't literally flat, and they were smaller, I would have been happier than I started with. Obviously there's scales of happy within that, but this is what I told her. I will be happier than I was when I came to you, if that. I was a bit worried because I felt like I'd gone way too small, but I was still happy, if that makes sense. Then I went home. That was a nightmare because the road that we drove on to come home was so bumpy, and every time we went over a bump, would shake the entire car. It was shaking me, like I'm like sewn in place like this, right? And it was so painful, but bearable, if that makes sense. Like I'm making it sound worse than it was, but what I'm trying to tell you here is like have a pillow or something to hold yourself while you're going over the bump. I came home, I was tired, so I basically just slept. I slept on the sofa at that point, I think. Didn't really manage to eat anything that day. And then I woke up, I tried to eat, and I threw up again before I managed to eat. I think I just like looked at it and threw up. At which point we called the hospital. They'd given me like a direct phone number to the ward, so anything that went wrong those first couple weeks, I could call. In fact, I still have the number, and I told them a couple months ago about something and they still spoke to me, so you know, at any point really. So I could call the ward and ask direct questions. So that was really good in those first few weeks, so especially when I was a bit more stressed. So I called the ward. They basically said like it could be the antibiotics that you're on, like you're on preventative antibiotics. So it could be that, or it could be the painkillers. So at that point I was taking codeine, I think ibuprofen, antibiotics, and a couple other things. I'd been given them all. So at that point we scrapped the codeine and the antibiotics, and I stopped throwing up. So it was definitely one of those. The throwing up was the worst bit because you're sewn so tightly and you're retching, so it's pulling and it feels like your chest is going to like rip open. But and this is what I said to the nurse, and the nurse is like, yeah, we hear that, but you cannot, like, it's not gonna happen, don't worry. And it didn't. And yeah, basically once, like, again though, it was only whilst I was retching. Like, this sounds a lot worse than it was. Like, it was very unpleasant in the moment, but the moment was over so quickly. So it's kind of, it was bad, but not as bad as it sounds, I think. Then yeah, just the next few days, it was a lot of sleeping. It was really difficult to sleep, to be honest. I think that as part of this like series, I'm gonna make some videos of like things that I bought for surgery and things I didn't need and blah blah. So I'll share a bit more about the pillows and things there, but I did basically sleep propped up with a lot of pillows. I think it's for 2 weeks, if I remember correctly. You have to sleep sat up, or not fully up, but basically like if you say this is your laid down, this is sat fully up, I think it has to be like here or higher. So you're very up, because you basically want all the drainage. You don't want any fluid to like collect there. At 1 week, I think it was, I went for my bandages looking at and changing, and I was having issues with the bra they'd put me in, the post-op bra. Like, I felt like I couldn't breathe. And when I went in, she did say, yeah, like probably you need a size up. So once they put me in that, I felt like I could breathe a little better. My ribs were felt quite like bruised actually from that first bra. And sometimes now even I can feel where they are. I think it kind of like was like a binder. But yeah, once I moved into that second bra, that was much easier. And I had bought, so the thing is, like I said, I measured a 32, but I would always wear a 34 bra because I just felt like, even though I measured that I should wear a 32, it feels too tight on my chest and I feel like I can't breathe. I don't know if it's because I'm asthmatic or something like that, but I just felt very triggered by that feeling of not being able to breathe. That was that really. So I don't know whether because they then would have put me in a bra that was measured for a 32, and I'd bought pre-op bras, so I had a few to change between, and I'd bought those again in the size that would measure for a 32, so they were all too small for me. So I ended up getting a couple more from the hospital that were that size bigger. I think they were supposed to charge me for those because when I paid, it said like 1 post-op bra included, but they never charged me. Then, so yeah, everything was healing nicely then. I had a little bit of an opening at the side. It did like bleed a little bit. Not bleed, it was more like weeping. But it never got infected or anything. It just kind of closed up within a few days. I think it was then around 2 weeks again, I think. I went back and, oh no, I think I took the tape off at some point. Can't remember, but like at a certain point, I was able to stop wearing the tape. I think it was at 1 week I went in and they changed it and they taught me how to change the tape. And then maybe a few weeks later I could stop wearing the tape. And then I think it was 6 weeks that I went back to see Lyndsey to get the final sign off. Those dates might be wrong. Yeah, all that's a bit of a blur, to be honest, because there was nothing really going on. Like, I was healing fine. When I was going to checkups, everything was fine. When this one opened at the side, it stressed me out a little bit, so I did go in actually for an extra nurse's appointment, which again they didn't charge me for. And she kind of took a look at it and she said, no, you're fine, like there's no infection or anything. So I think I was a little bit worried that it was infected, but it wasn't. So there was that. But after the first week-ish, I would say that I was pretty comfortable in terms of I wasn't in pain. I couldn't really lift anything up. I couldn't really like do anything too heavy, but I could do the basics. Like I could make a cup of tea or something, which like in the first week I couldn't. So that was nice. Would recommend saving some money. I don't know why I'm playing with this lip gloss and using it like a pointer, but here we are. I would recommend saving some money to dedicate to things like takeaways. If you're a Starbucks girl like me, dedicated Starbucks budget, because when you're literally sat on the sofa for like 2 weeks, it's difficult to like curb those cravings. If you're craving a coffee or something, you're gonna want to order your coffee. If you're craving pizza that night, you're gonna want to eat pizza, and because you're sat around all day thinking about it and you have nothing else to do. I had a little bit of a dedicated takeaway budget, not enough. Would recommend a good couple £100 for those cravings if you can. In terms of time off, I took 2 weeks off, I think, and then I had, I think, 2 more weeks work from home before I went back to the office. And in terms of working out, I think that it was, you're allowed to do things like go for small walks as long as you're not like feeling tired. I think that was after 2 weeks, and then you're allowed to work out, I think, after 8. But I would say speak to your doctor specifically about those, because that's going to affect a lot of things about like what you had in surgery will affect that. So like if you had a rougher surgery, or how fit you are or how fit you aren't, I think those things are going to affect when you're allowed to work out and things like that. So definitely, I think that was roughly what it was for me, but speak with your surgeon who will be able to tell you for you. I think it was at 3 months you're allowed to wear an underwire bra. For me now, I don't bother with them too much, but you're allowed to. And then I think they say somewhere between 6 and 12 months is when like all your stitches are dissolved, you're fully healed, like that kind of thing. Hence me waiting a year to film this video. I feel like I've probably missed some things, but I can't think what else I need to tell you. I do have some Q&A questions, but I've been filming for 50 minutes already, and I don't want this video to last forever and ever and ever. So I think I'm gonna do this one just as a like my breast reduction story, and I'm gonna film another one that will be like a breast reduction Q&A, just to kind of break it down a little bit more, because I do have a lot of questions to answer on there as well. So yeah, I think we're gonna leave it there for now. The other one will be up very soon, because I appreciate if you watch this video, you're gonna want to hear the rest of it as well. And that it's a bit annoying of me to split them up, but it seems like that's just what I'm gonna have to do in the interest of not boring you all to absolute death. I did want to show you guys as well my bodysuit that I'm wearing today. It's very cute. I got this on TikTok Shop of all places, which I've been low-key obsessed with TikTok Shop recently. Like, it's cute. They put some cute things on there. This is like my Skims bodysuit, but comfy. I'm gonna post something on TikTok talking about like the difference between the two soon. But anyway, if you want to see the difference between the two, if you want to find a link to this one, I'm gonna have those in the description box. And I'd really recommend, I got this one, and I have it over here actually because I'm gonna film something with it later. This one that I'm wearing and this little beige one that came with it, they were 2 for £12, so amazing. And the quality is really nice. And anyway, yeah, you're gonna have to go into the TikTok, but I just wanted to mention it because honestly, I'm really low-key obsessed with that. Very cute. Anyway, that's all from me for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm so sorry that I've blathered on so much. Thank you all so much for listening. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you all next time for the Q&A. Bye. Not the way that I do love you. Well, holy moly, me oh my, you're the apple of my eye. Girl, I never loved one like you. Man, oh man, you're my best friend. I scream into the nothingness. There ain't nothing that I need. Well, hot and heavy pumpkin pie, chocolate candy, Jesus Christ. Ain't nothing please me more than you. Let me